Hello, and welcome to Asgard, also known as Laceys and Seddon's Comic Stash. I have Mjolnir. Seddon
I've got
has.
nothing. I've got nothing.
He says
Well, it's
that.
just a lie. I do have a little Thor in the background. Oh, reflection.
A little bit of Mighty Thor.
Little Thor. Yeah.
And as a spoiler, boys and girls, we're talking about
Batman.
Thor, Love and Thunder.
Oh, sorry, no, Thor, Love and Thunder. Yeah.
Batman was last time.
It's always Batman. Well, Batman will get in here somewhere, won't he?
Usually has his way.
Ever present.
So, before we go into our discussion of Love and Thunder, it's time to get ourselves in a corner. A reading corner.
Anywho, we are in our reading corners, and what have we got in our reading corners this week? Have you got a plethora like you did last time we spoke?
I do have a few that I'm going to run through.
Let's go on into yours then.
So first things first is the beast that I got for my birthday, the table or coffee table edition, as they would call them, of 300.
Yes, I forgot you got that.
Which is pretty as fuck.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you've seen the film, it's about 300 Spartans fucking up Xerxes and the Persians.
Spartans! Or something like that.
This is Sparta!
And a lot of kicking.
Yes.
And a lot of... I'd love to say I know what colour palette that is, but I'm not good enough on colours. So it's sepia, something like that. But yes, very distinct palette, hath the movie.
And the art style cometh for the movie from a Frank Miller's description of it in the graphic novel. It's one of those. It very, very much does keep to the tone of the work, and yeah, it's fucking awesome.
It's one of those little buttes, isn't it? Where you go, if you like the comic, you'll like the movie. If you like the movie, you'll like the comic because it's done well, isn't it?
Yeah, and yeah, very, very much enjoyed that. From Stealing from the Boy, these next it's a double one. Tokyo Ghoul Book 1 and 2.
Yeah, and I say yeah because you did actually kind of give me a heads up of how you felt about Tokyo Ghoul 1, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm not a teenage emo, so it's not for me.
Don't give us that bullshit. We all know you're a teenager, really.
I was a teenage goth. It's a difference.
No, I'm not saying you were back then. I'm saying now you're a teenager and an emo.
Still goth, but I do emo.
Sorry, I meant Nemo. You are Nemo from Finding Nemo. That's the one.
So yeah, it's pretty. I like the concept of it as an idea of what it is. It's the ghouls are basically the undead zombies that need to eat people to stay alive, but they live in Tokyo as part of the normal human race. It's a story that's a very vampire-y sort of thing too. Yes, it's pretty, but
it's a nice place to live, isn't it? Like if I was picking, it would be on my list of places to live.
But yeah, no, it suffers from. I've not read enough manga and stuff to tarnish it all with it, but it has. When you see the covers of stuff with the schoolgirls with the tiny skirts and the big boob sort of thing, it's just.
I'm kind of glad you said that because I went on a bit of a manga buying binge a couple of months ago now and did what all honourable purchases of anything that is reading material, be it comics, manga, novels, and then put them in a pile in the room and went, I'll get back to them. And Tokyo Ghoul was one of the ones that I was planning on getting. I didn't at the time. I think because I actually bought them in a real shop. I think it was Waterstones, and they didn't have Tokyo Ghoul. But I was still planning on picking it up at a certain point. But you have almost instantaneously convinced me not to, because I think we said before, we'll probably do a bit more manga down the line. There still is a plan for a manga-specific episode in the future, but that's often the ones that really leave me cold. The ones that kind of lean really heavily into that dress them as a schoolgirl titillation side of it. And it's not for me, man. Like, it just feels... It's that side of even Japanese culture that you kind of hear about, where you go, Japan sounds really cool, apart from a few bits. And I realise it's part of it, so I can see why it gets into the material. But yes, it makes me less inclined to read something. I mean, I've done a few animes. I went on a bit of an anime kick last year, and I often found that the more it lent into that side, which I wasn't really going to get into anyway, the weaker I found the material anyway, because it was almost like, oh, we're doing that bit, so we don't need to do anything else. And I'd had high hopes that Tokyo Ghoul wouldn't be like that, so I'm glad you've given me the heads up it is. So I think if I do pick it up at any point, it will be way down the pile stroke line, so it's nice to know that I can park that one for the while.
Yeah, it's one of those. I read book one, I was like, all right, I'm slightly intrigued by the idea and the concept, but I got the boy the second book because Will fucking loves it.
Yeah. Well, I remember when we had him on the show, he was really, really into it, and I know the anime is very highly regarded. Maybe that's why, but yeah, it's not for me, I don't think.
Yeah, no, as I said, I read the second book as well, just to sort of go, well, does it pick up or does it grab me sort of, further in? And no, if anything, it lost me further in. So
yeah,
it's one of those of, I will probably end up buying lots of them for him because he really enjoys it, but it's not one of those that I'll be like, do you want to just leave that here when you go home and I'll read through it whilst you're not here? He'll be going, take them with you. With those.
I mean, we've said this on loads of other stuff, haven't we? I mean, part of this endeavour, anything, watching TV, watching movies, reading comic books, a lot of it is you'll find stuff you don't like. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's without any merit and that no one else will like it, but sometimes it's just not for you. And this sounds like it would fall into that category or that criteria for me.
Yeah, and last but not least is another. This one was a Christmas present that it's taken me until recently to actually pick up and get into. Joker's War saga. Oh.
Who writes it? I can't remember.
Oh, no.
Is it James Tynion the Fourth? Is that who it is?
2 seconds, let me find out.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember. Because
unlike
you, I don't, go as far as write down who.
I mean, it's a thing though for me, isn't it? The writers. I mean, when we talk about this stuff, I think the writer's the big bit for me, and then the artist.
James Tynion
the Fourth. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Very. I haven't read much of his. He kind of comes post Snyder, post Tom King. He is somewhat, alongside Tom Taylor at DC, seems to be the next big thing in writers that people really kind of jump on board with. And I do have an absolute raft of his stuff added to my DC Universe Infinite list to get to, because I do want to hit up at what he's kind of throwing down. But I haven't read. I've read a series by him that is non-superhero-y, or I've read what there is of a series that he's done, and I really liked his style. So.
Yeah, so this started with the introduction to this in Joker 80th anniversary, which I picked up a couple of years ago, and was like, because Harley's left Joker, and you've got Joker's got himself a new henchwoman, Punchline.
Is it Punchline? Yeah. Because Punchline, I knew more so from. There was a lot of buzz. I think the first appearance was one of those where the prices skyrocketed almost instantaneously. But I think to a large part, without having read it, I think it skyrocketed almost instantaneously, because it was like, well, this will be the new Harley Quinn, whether it is or it isn't, you know, like, so I think the speculator market run wild on her as a character.
Also, that was the 80th anniversary Joker special edition.
Yeah,
was the introduction of her. So I think it was a double whammy there of it being a collector's issue plus introduction of new character. She is cool. The main gist of the story: Joker has taken over Gotham. He literally runs everything and is fucking everything up in the way that you'd expect the Joker to do. And Batman has to rely on all of his buddies, so Nightwing, Robin, Batgirl, all are here. Red Hood even makes an appearance to take down Joker and Punchline. Harley's there with also trying to help because she just wants to get at Joker, because this is very much where they're still at that animosity of how much she fucking hates him, because she's realised it was an abusive fucking relationship, and you know they're not this great thing that most people think they are.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is brutal.
They're not Bonnie and Clyde for now, are they? They are. No.
But yeah, no, it is brutal. It is gory. There are funny bits in it. The art style is very different from other Batman stuff recently.
Yeah.
It very much has its own feel. So yeah, very much recommend getting on this one.
I quite fancy getting to it because post this, it spins off into a Joker solo, doesn't it? Which gets written by him, and I think it's quite intrinsic to that part of the Batman universe when that is running. I know Batman is about to go through a transition with new creative teams, so it'll mix up a little bit, but I am interested in doing all of the post Tom King Batman, which primarily is going to be sort of James Tynion, etc., etc. So I will get to it at a certain point. It's on the list.
Yeah, so that is my reading corner. What do you have said?
I've got Venom, and I say Venom, it's a very broad term, but I started reading, or I reread, because I'd actually read the first couple of trades, but I really wanted to kind of go back to it and do it all. I can't remember whether I've covered them on reading corners before, but one of the writers that I'm catching up on is Donny Cates, and he's done a lot of Marvel stuff, done a lot of creator owned as well, and I will get to that. But I'd really enjoyed the Doctor Strange one that I read, which is one of the ones I think I talked about on here, and his big run, or I guess his most famous run to this point on the Marvel one, was his run on Venom, and it's very well regarded. And so I thought, right, that's it. Start cracking on to that. And I read the first 6 issues, and it's as... No, I was going to say it's as good as I remembered. I'll take that back. It's better than I remembered. I remembered first time out feeling that the first trade was not as good as the second. And I may do that the same when I get to the next 6 issues, but I loved this. This drops us into Eddie Brock as the symbiote that in the comics he'd been through a few people at the time. I'd actually quite enjoyed the previous run to this where it had been Flash Thompson had him, but you're dropped straight into Eddie Brock Venom, and this comes out the gate at 100 miles an hour and certainly doesn't stop in the first 6 issues, and I feel like doesn't stop at all. And this is very much a trait that you tend to get in the Donny Cates books, is that he has this story he wants to tell, and so far it's always seemed like he's got an expansive story of however long, but he crams tons into it. But in this, we get introduced to what will become a very big peril in the world of Venom, because the symbiote starts to kind of have, let's say, funny turns, for want of a better term, and starts becoming a bit uncontrollable. And actually, you find out about a group of soldiers from the Vietnam War, or I'm going to say Vietnam. I pictured it as Vietnam, but probably didn't say that because they don't like to age characters so much, who had symbiotes, and then Venom is sent to try and release 4 of them from captivity or from life by one of the surviving members of this troop. And when you're there, he freaks out again. You see a lovely new kind of art style for a Venom creature. Makes him a lot more kind of spindly, and there's spirals on his face, and you're starting to kind of get this feeling like there might be something demonic in it. And then out of this battle, a massive dragon appears. And when I say a dragon, a kind of venomized dragon. And over this first 6 issues, it chucks at you who the big peril is. And I am actually going to come back to this when we talk Thor: Love and Thunder. But you know what I said about something coming out of the gates at 100 miles an hour? Not often do you see the big bad for the whole series that early on. Normally, you get... You know when we're talking about Killing Time, when we did that episode, and we're going, only a 6-issue series, but you get the kind of nuggets meted out until you get the reveal. Yeah. They just kind of go, bang, here's a reveal, let's go. And so it's really kind of interesting for that way. The art by Ryan Stegman is fantastic. And I don't know whether you've seen it. There's a Funko Pop, which is Venom with wings. Because in this, Venom gets an upgrade and he gets the wings. And as much as I've seen the pup beforehand, the page where you see that is stunning. And it looks like he should have always had wings. It's kind of done so well. But one of the big selling points for me is that I remember the Black Spider-Man costume from Secret Wars. It's where I started, and Spider-Man gets it. And I followed some of that Spider-Man story, and I saw the introduction of Venom, and I followed... bits of that, and then over the years people have added to the lore, so now there's I want to say like a symbiote planet, but Venom planet, whatever you want to call it, and they've established why and what these are. No, they haven't, because the story changes all of that, but changes all of it in a really good way. It doesn't throw anything out, but it says this is what you think happened, but here's the stuff that happened before that, and here's the why. And for something that changes the lore of a character so much, I've rarely seen it done so well, because you just kind of go, yeah, okay, I like this. This doesn't seem to contradict what come before, and I think it's better than. I think you should read this. I think you bloody love it.
So one of the things on my reading list that was going to come up with a future reading club, but I'll throw it out now, is the Venom and Carnage mini-series that came out, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, and I think it is linked to this run.
I think so as well, yeah.
And the art style in that is just fucking stunning.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's kind of a Carnage-based event that comes out of the Venom series, I think.
Yeah, but
I'm not that far in yet, so I don't know. But yes, I think it is.
But that's the thing is, like, it was a Comixology freebie when Comixology was good. So please sponsor us.
Yes, and make your service better again.
Yeah, go back to how it was.
Yeah,
one. But yeah, it was one of those of that is visually fucking amazing, and it's things like the fonts and the text type on it is just works so well, and it's so different to everything else. But yeah, I after reading that, I definitely want to do more Venom, and if this is a good start point, I think
it gives you like a load of the history and the lore in kind of panels, so it means you don't have to have read everything. But again, I think if you've read everything, it does a good enough job to kind of go, yeah, we're not shitting on all this stuff, we're adding to it, and we hope you like where it goes. And certainly from my side, I thought it goes in a very good place.
You know what you need to do? You need to get it in my list.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, so that definitely, as I said, after reading the Venom Carnage, I definitely want to read more Venom.
I'm gonna read the lot. I've got everything of Johnny Cates's on my Marvel Unlimited list, and you know I'm dipping in and out so as to not get burnout. But this is the next big run for me. You know, it's got a couple of limited series that run around it or shorter stories, but it will be Venom, 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 Venom. Then I'll pick up the couple of bits around that, and then after that he does a Thor run. And I have read the first 12 of the Thor run, but by the time I get to it, there'll be extra issues, so I'll start again. And I would say that the Thor run was what made me start the Venom run, and very much same with Thor, and we'll get to that, I guess, somewhere down the line. If you like Venom, we'll do the Thor one. Again, he adds and adds and adds to the lore, whilst never feeling like he's throwing stuff in the bin. It's almost everything else happened, but actually, if you look at it from this angle, we said about the killing time when the Clock King is in the room, but because you're seeing it from his perspective, Donny Cates has a bit of a style of doing that and borrows from everything from history. Like he will find a bit from a more obscure issue from 10 years previous and go, I'm going to make this important for the purpose of the story.
Yeah. So definitely have a look at some of that, because that sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So we will go into the reason why we're here.
The main event of the evening.
For Mjolnir.
Meow meow.
And the latest in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Thor: Love and Thunder.
And you may notice that this episode is coming out way after it come out. And to a large part, that's because of me. Because it took me ages to get around to watching this. And I don't know why, is the honest reason. I think the reviews, I saw the reviews early doors because I knew I wasn't going to see it. And I had a good feeling where the story was going, storyline-wise, because we'll get into that kind of our experience of what this is based on from the comics. But so I looked at some of the reviews, and the reviews discouraged me, and they discouraged me enough to go, I need to leave this a while before I see it, because I didn't want to be coloured by those reviews. And I feel like I left it enough time to still have what I was hearing in reviews in the back of my head, but for it not to be the overriding thought when I went into it. It allowed me to have my own thoughts and feelings about it.
I didn't even go, and unusual for me, because especially like Thor and it being Taika, usually this would have been an opening weekend go and see. Even I didn't see it straight away. It wasn't until I had the boy at the beginning of the school holidays that I was like, well, I'll take him and go see Thor. Because again, same, I'd heard middling to poor coming out of reviews of it.
I can't remember which bump of announcements this one was in, but like how you kind of get the, like they did it like not that long ago at the last Comic-Con, where they have the screen up and they do all the announcements. I remember when I saw Thor: Love and Thunder, before we even knew anything about it, I was like, that's the one I'm most excited about. Then I heard Taika was coming back, and I went, that's the one I'm most excited about. Then we kind of got the who will be Thor plotline kind of dropped in us. I went, brilliant. I'm in, and I was up until a little bit before the release, I was really excited for this. It was going to be the crowning glory of this phase for me, or possibly the next few phases. And my interest petered out quite quickly before it come out.
So something that I do want to touch on, but I think we'll do it after we've gone through the whole of the film. But I will just on here, just as a smidgen. Was it because Marvel Overload, by this point, that the excitement was waned a bit?
It might have been. I mean, I think other projects that have come out in recent times, I think I have felt that about it. This one, I don't know whether this one was that war of attrition against everything, and it might have been more so snippets that I'd seen. Like, we got the trailers quite late, didn't we? And and early, not even early reviews, but early talk about it made me think it was going to go in the direction that I didn't want it to. And I kind of almost had a fit. My excitement went because I felt like this wasn't going to be the movie I wanted it to be. And when I say I wanted it to be, I don't mean I've written it in my head, but I love Taika Waititi, and I felt like this might be his first misstep. And maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We'll get to that. But yeah, I don't know whether it is burnout for me that did it for this, but I think I felt that burnout for some other projects. But this one was so special because it had characters we loved, it had a storyline that I was really interested in, and it had a great director still. But by the time we got there,
Yeah. So, overview of the plot for this. Gorr.
Gorr! As Rhino would say.
And his daughter Love on a planet. They are struck down by their god with famine. Gorr finds his god, and it's that whole "we have been worshipping you, why didn't you save us?" So he then becomes the god butcherer.
Yeah, I mean, the god pretty much just goes, "Why would I?" Like, there is no eternal.
There is no heaven.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, effectively, that's what he was saying, wasn't it? There is no heaven. Foolish. And when challenged on it, he kind of goes, "Well, there'll always be followers. Like, someone will always follow me. I don't need you. I'm not beholden to you." And you've got like let's say a man for the purpose of this. You've got a man who's given up his whole life and seen his daughter suffer, kind of hit rock bottom and go, "No, I'm not happy with this. I am going to take my revenge against you." And it just so happens that where they are, they're next to, conveniently, the Necro Sword, a powerful weapon that can be used to slay gods. And the Necro Sword chooses effectively, in the same way as I guess Meow Meow and Thor have a combo. Well, I guess we'll get to Meow Meow and Thor's connection, but the Necro Sword becomes Gorr, becomes his weapon, and he kills said god, and then declares in a very proclamation sentence, "I'm going to kill all gods." And Gorr being played by Christian Bale, obviously a very established actor in Hollywood, through many dramatic roles and superhero roles before, as we've seen him as Batman.
Yes. We then see Thor.
I was going to say, good luck describing the next bit. I'm interested to see how you describe it.
Yeah. Who then fuck off really quickly, and I was like, but I thought the whole point of Thor, and especially with what the next Guardians film is it's the Guardians of Asgard. Thor with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it just turns into a weird bromance. No, you're crying. No, you're crying. You love me. No, you love me. I'll miss you. No, you'll miss me. Bollocks.
And I wasn't timing it. Like, I didn't have my watch out, but it felt like this portion of the story took us probably at least 25 minutes, half hour in to the resolution of this. Although, again, I might be misfeeling that.
I'm not sure it is that long, but fuck, it felt it. This is the one thing that I will say of this. This comes in at less than 2 hours.
Yes.
As a total runtime, which is, novel for
miraculous for a Marvel film, isn't it?
But yeah, no, this bit drags and has no real purpose for anything. Because
larks, humour, that's what it's there for. Well, no, I say that's a lie. That's not only what it's there for, but this plays up a lot of jokes in here, doesn't it? Like, they kind of go, they're on a planet, aren't they? The planet there's a war going on. The Guardians are fighting it. Thor comes out, slowly walks through the battlefield, trying to get all of the reverence and all of this stuff. Could stop the whole thing before loads of people, innocent people and non-innocent people, die, but chooses to grandstand quite a lot. Then hilarity ensues as he goes and stops them, but destroys this temple that was really important to the people of the planet, showing him as I mean, I think the idea was to kind of play up that comedy Thor that we have seen in a lot of the projects. I mean, I think the stuff you read afterwards, I think Taika Waititi gets a lot of criticism for making Thor a comedy character, but I think the Avengers makes Thor a comedy character. That was already established before he comes along, but this does ratchet that comedy up to like 50, doesn't it? And he is portrayed as that buffoon that he is sometimes portrayed as, but I thought in this a really bad version of the buffoon because he didn't really care about what was happening to anyone around him. And I don't know, I never felt that in other portrayals of him. Even when he was being an idiot, he was still like a noble idiot who his heart was in the right place. And this didn't feel like that for me. I felt quite disconnected to the Thor in this. And as you say, then it plays up to the bromance of the Guardians. Well, the Guardians pretty much saying, yeah, we don't really want you here. Straight him going, what if I went? And I was just like, bye. And then you have this kind of whole scene where, you know, he's talking about his lost love, which we'll come on to in a minute. You know, Ghoul kind of going, you know, like the way to sort of be shot. It's better to have loved and lost than to never loved at all. And the hilarious scene where he's saying, you look into the eyes of those people you love, and then Thor's trying to look in his eyes while he's trying to look away from his eyes and see the Guardians. And then they just kind of go. And this was a sledgehammer to crack a nut, wasn't it? If you wanted to establish that Thor lost a love of his life, and that's why he's kind of struggling and maybe doing the things he's doing, you could do that in about a minute really well, possibly with a voiceover. Now, when I say possibly with a voiceover, this film has multiple voiceovers done by Taika himself.
Korg.
He's playing Korg, which tells you it's almost the Tales of Thor, isn't it? It's a theme that plays through it. But somehow we were getting them and having to watch an extended 10 to 15 minute overly long scene to really hammer it home. And it was not a good start to the movie for me. And I was worried when we come out of this part. I thought, I am not going to like this.
Yeah. We do hear from Lady Sif that Gorr is targeting Asgard.
Yeah. Beautiful visuals though, weren't they?
Yeah.
They kind of show the Gorr bit, and then you've got the and I can't remember, they do name it later, but you see in the background like that giant god, and I know they go there, and that is ripped straight from Jason Aaron's Thor run, and it was a lovely visual to see in the comic. And for any criticism this movie has of, and I guess we might as well throw it out there now, the now quoted, I believe, by Taika Waititi, but he is a comedian at heart, so whether it's true or not, claim of, well, I've never really read any of it, so I don't really know what any of it's about, but certainly at parts of the movie, and it may have been just the people in the visual design, there is a lot of recreation of great panels from Thor's history, so I loved those elements of the movie.
Yeah. We see Jane Foster on Earth and has fucked level of cancer and is dying.
Yeah.
Basically, treatment doesn't work, and she goes to New Asgard in a hoodie because then no one will know who she is, and stands around the broken parts of Mjolnir, and Mjolnir magically reforms, making her the Mighty Thor. I, at this point, was like, oh, here we go. We're going to get some of that awesome story from the first issue, or the first collection of the Mighty Thor. Yeah.
That kind of like re-intro of her, and that us getting up to speed with where she is, and as you say, that kind of leading to her. She you know, they established she's spoken to like kind of all the scientists she knows, but you know, they only show a couple. They don't say go, but like you get the idea that she's tried most treatments, and because of who she is and the access to people she has, that they've tried some real kind of chunky stuff, and nothing's worked. And then it's I can't remember what Kat Dennings' character's name is, but she even suggests, you know, why don't you get yourself get your God of Thunder in to help you? And she's like, no. But then she sees a Viking text, doesn't she? And I think at that point she flicks through it, sees that Mjolnir has some degree of healing power, and then goes, right, I'm off to Asgard. And okay, it was them kind of establishing where she is and reminding us, I think, of who she was, because she wasn't in Thor Ragnarok. It's been quite a gap, isn't it, time-wise, since we've actually seen her. Clunky again for me. I don't. I won't go too much into this because I'll come back to the clunkiness of this, I think, when we get to some of the stuff that happens later. But yeah, you're right. Comparing it to the Jason Aaron written Thor run, it doesn't at the early stages compare very well, and unfortunately for me, in the later stages doesn't compare very well either.
Yeah. We then get our first set piece for battle, where Gorr turns up and starts attacking New Asgard.
Yeah.
And Valkyrie, Korg, and the Fours fight Gorr.
This is Thor meeting Jane Thor as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they kind of have Mjolnir's flying around, and I think old Thor, let's go with, and thinks, oh, like my kind of weapon's back, it will come to me, and then it doesn't come to him, and then you get what is shown in the trailer, that kind of pan up as you see Jane in her Thor get up for the first time, and not only are we seeing it as the audience, but he is seeing it as well.
Yeah, and I know there's part of it. I get that he misses his hammer, but the weird cheating girlfriend thing.
How could you possibly know that he misses his hammer, Chris? Because that wasn't hammered to fucking death, was it? Like, no.
And the cheating girlfriend factor of him with Stormbreaker.
Do you know what? I think once that might have been funny.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we get this. We get a number of scenes, don't we, where he'll be calling for Mjolnir, or he'll be talking about Mjolnir, or he'll be talking to Mjolnir, or, as we'll get to a little bit later, another weapon, and then out of the side of the camera, in comes Stormbreaker. And yes, I think that could have been funny. It wasn't. It fell so hard and fast, didn't it? And but they couldn't divorce themselves now, could they? They've gone. We've got our gag. Let's do it.
It's nothing with this. You do it once, and of all of them, the one that I thought was the least offensive is later on when they're on the boat.
Yeah,
and they're using Stormbreaker to fly the boat. That one would have been fine, but because you had it fucking all the way through so far, as soon as you've fucking seen Mjolnir with Jane, there's that fucking joke, and it's just it's just fucking hammered again and again and again, and it's just like, okay, we get it.
Yeah. And we got it a couple of times ago, and we were sick of it a couple of times ago. Please stop at this point.
Yeah. Gorr then kidnaps all of Asgard's children and takes them off to the Shadow Realm, which I will say, the Shadow Realm looked fucking pretty.
What is the Shadow Realm?
It was the necro dark side of the moon.
But you know, like, what is it? Why? And I know we've done this before in Marvel, but even this, it just kind of felt a bit like the Shadow Realm.
Yeah, it wasn't needed.
Or establish the Shadow Realm.
Yeah.
Rather than spending what was either 3 minutes that felt like half an hour or half an hour giving us the Guardian stuff, establish that this is where Gorr is out of. Like, get us to see it beforehand so that when they're taken there. I mean, for me, I know it was dark and shadowy, but he just put a load of kids, and I'm not saying child kidnap's acceptable before anyone puts it in the comments, but he just put a bunch of kids into a weird, crude skeleton cage somewhere dark. And I don't know, it felt a bit twee and weak for me, for someone who did establish with a really good looking Gorr. And they called him the God Butcher, like it didn't even come across, it wasn't even as scary as like the child catcher doing that shit. It just it felt a bit feeble to me. God, I'm being really negative about this.
I did get child catcher vibes with the bony cage that he puts
Yeah.
them in. All it needed was ice cream,
So
lollipops, all free today.
so this is a bit
Come,
where I'm gonna
children.
go back to the comic book. So when they're in New Asgard
Yes.
and Gorr is accompanied by his minions, let's say, or his army that they fight. Did they remind you of anything?
Yes. They are very much the runts that are in the beginning of that Mighty Thor run, just thrown in for no apparent reason.
I mean, like the colouring of them, and maybe kind of the way they move and things like that. Did it invoke anything in you?
I don't know what you're trying to get with.
So I said I read the Venom run.
Yeah.
In the comics, Venom is linked to this whole story. So they are symbiotes, and that Necro Sword is actually, I say invented, is created by the bad guy from Venom. And it links into the Thor runs for that. It links into that whole story. It links into the Gorr story in the comic books.
Ah.
Yeah. Which I know they don't touch on in there, and of course they wouldn't necessarily, because they don't have the rights of Venom. Sony do. And
Yeah.
my God, if I'm the MCU, I don't want to be touching that. I mean, I don't want to be touching that bullshit Venom franchise at all. But yes, it wasn't spot on, obviously, but I thought they did a reasonable job of, again, if you've seen the sort of comic books, but yeah, Gorr is massively entwined, or the Gorr story builds off of the Venom story. But I say that the Gorr story happened first. I talk about Donny Cates being able to integrate lots of stuff, and he brings it back in his Thor run.
Yeah.
That yes, the Necro Sword. They talk in this, don't know about how the Necro Sword is created, but it's created by the villain you meet in the first 6 issues of this Venom run, and they tell you he created the Necro Sword, and it's been a huge thing in the Thor run up to that point. So yes, in comics world they are connected.
Yeah. Another thing that they do on this that is fucking hammered, could have been done subtly, but no, has to be fucking hammered in, is that one of the kids, Axel, is Helmdall's kid, who also is a seer.
You can't name any character Axel without me thinking Axel Foley from Beverly Hills. By the way, that's going through my brain the whole time through the movie.
Yeah, but that again was another thing that was just could have been done so more subtly. No, sledgehammer.
I think it was supposed to make us give a shit about those kids rather than just being a blob of children. But not being a parent and not being someone who kind of goes, yay, kids, I think you don't really need to establish a reason to care about them more. The fact that a load of kids have been killed should be enough, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, he was Heimdall's son. And maybe they're going something with it. Maybe there's plans for a spin-off Disney Plus TV show of the kids of Asgard. So who knows?
Don't give them ideas.
I've done it now. I want some sponsorship though if they use that at all. I want a cut of the money.
We then see all of Thor and buddies all go off to the God City to go see Zeus, who basically has no shits that the God Butcher is coming because they're all there and they're all safe.
Russell Crowe
as Zeus was funny. This bit again just seemed to drag.
Was long. Funny. Or I'm going to say again, felt long. Might not have been long, but I thought it was a long. And I can see why, because you've signed up Russell Crowe. You're establishing something that they haven't really done up until now in the Marvel universe, that there are other pantheons of gods. I mean, I know they've done like the Panther God and things like that in passing in Black Panther, but I mean, it is a very big thing in Marvel comics. They tend to mainly focus on a couple of the gods, also a couple of the groups of gods, but but yes, they clearly wanted to establish pantheons as a thing in this. I hated this bit. This was the worst part of the movie for me. You said it's funny. I thought this was atrocious. I was. We'd gone to a cinema quite far away from my house. It was a drive away. I think if I'd gone to a cinema near my house, I might have left at this point. I thought this was, and again, like, look, I go into something Taika Waititi, I've got to expect there to be a degree of comedy. We'll get to later about, like, comparatively how I feel about this against other stuff that he's done, including Thor Ragnarok. But in Thor Ragnarok, you know, Hulk becomes a big comedy character, and maybe it's because it was funnier, but I didn't want, if you're going to establish that there are other gods in the Marvel universe, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this ain't the way to do it. Because I don't want to see any of these on the screen again. Because I feel like if I'm going to see any of these on the screen again, I'm going to get an idiot version of Zeus played by Russell Crowe. Now, don't get me wrong, they'd established earlier in the movie that gods are arrogant and pricks. I think you established them being arrogant pricks, not with comedy. I think he could have actually been in somewhat imposing. Yeah, he could have had some funny gods in there just so you get the Taika Waititi laughs. And, you know, it looks pretty, don't you? And it pans round and you've got all of these gods. And I'm sure there are tons of Easter eggs in there that I didn't notice that I'm supposed to go, yay, that's cool, yay, that's cool. But after they did what they did with this part of the story, because it's at this part, isn't it, where we get, they take, so... Whoosh. Jane and Valkyrie, they're all for just going down there and kicking the shit out of them and getting what they want, aren't they? But Thor's like, no, we've got this. And he kind of hero worships Zeus a bit. But because they're whispering, talking in class, he gets called down, and then Zeus kind of goes shh, and blows all of Thor's clothes off, it's in the adverts, it's there, but he's stark naked, and all of the women around Zeus, they all faint. Now, don't get me wrong, he's a good-looking fella, and I'm sure he's got a lovely body. This just felt so weak.
See, this is where I zoned out of it being funny. What I meant by the funny bit was as they were going in, and you saw the other gods, and you had Korg mention little quirky bits about the other gods.
What was his god? Ninny Nonny, wasn't it? Or something like that.
I don't know.
Bits,
I didn't mind.
There's a tiny bit about Omnipotent City where you just kind of go, that's, you know, we saw stuff like this in Guardians, and it's from the comic books in Guardians and things like that. This idea of people of a certain ilk, in this case, gods meeting in one place and having it as kind of their stronghold. Oh, no, man. They just destroyed this whole bit for me. It was just so poor.
But yeah, again, something that's clearly coming up quite a bit in this. Fuck, it feels long.
Yeah.
So they
and they wanted to get Zeus's weapon, didn't they? Zeus has a lightning bolt that fires lightning bolts.
Yeah.
And
Valkyrie
despite them all having weapons and powers that fire lightning bolts already, they wanted this. And don't get me wrong, they say it's Zeus, so it's an it's a very powerful weapon. But
we then have them all basically make their way to the Shadow Realm. Yeah. They can't find the kids. We then get a big scrap, which is all right. Gorr shows how hardcore he is because he basically takes the lead, takes over. Gorr gets Stormbreaker at this point. Mjolnir's basically killing Jane, which is true to the Mighty Thor run, but over a much, much longer time than 2 days. So Thor goes off to fight Gorr on his own because, you know, he's got to be the big hero.
Yeah.
This was again, visually looked good, but didn't, you know, perk me up at all.
No perks were upped during the filming of this movie. Yeah, I mean it's fine, wasn't it? Like the action scenes. I think
Yeah.
you're right there. I think you know they filmed them quite nice. Quite the fights are quite visually pleasing, or as exciting as they're going to be when you kind of inevitably have an idea of what the end point would be. But it didn't wow me. I didn't go, oh, wow, that bit was grand, or that was worth the price of a ticket alone. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So Thor then finds the kids, uses Zeus's thunderbolt, and manages to, you know, take out all of the symbiotes, as they are, we will now call them,
Yeah.
of Gorr's army, and then has a scrap with Gorr. Um, Jane turns up to make the save. They both battle against Gorr. You know, we get the bit where they reveal that that Gorr's daughter isn't dead, is alive and is with the gods. Um, so he can bring her back and be all good and all
And
powerful.
and Korg kind of dies somewhere along here, but
Yeah,
doesn't, does he? It's just
no,
his face that's still there,
yeah, he's
and
worn as
then
a
he,
mask on the back of Valkyrie.
yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, they have a scrap. Gorr dies, and Thor takes his daughter, Love, and off they go for a big scrap set piece. Underwhelmed.
I mean, I think there's something key there, isn't there? Of going like we're having to kind of notoriously bad memories, but we're chucking in things like Korg gets kind of killed. We didn't even mention Jane gets kind of killed. Like Gorr does,
Yeah,
because it's and this is for me what the core problem with it is I didn't care, and like we meander through this and possibly even explain it badly because do you know what, it just feels like there wasn't much to really bother to linger on, because you get to this point and you're just going, and then they go here and then they go there and then they go here and this thing kind of happens, eh, eh, eh. And I think
yeah,
that's to a large part my big problem, or one of my big problems with this movie is um, I don't care. I don't care what happens to Thor. I don't care what happens to Gorr by the end of it, although I did at first. I don't care what happens to Jane, and that is a real shame for me that I don't care what happens to Jane.
yeah,
I don't care what happens to Korg, a character I've loved in every scene he's been in. I don't care that the kid's still alive. I don't care what happens next. I don't care about Zeus. I don't care about the post credits. I don't care. And I wasn't with. I'm glad we're talking about it tonight because I come out of it and I think my first reaction is I don't know how I felt about that movie,
yeah,
and I've taken kind of a week to try and digest it. And that sometimes movies are so full of substance that it just takes a while to digest it. This wasn't that. I just was confused because I didn't feel like I walked out of the movie hating it. I knew there was big. I knew I had big problems with certain sections of it, but I felt like I liked some of it as well. But talking about it tonight, I just kind of went, "We'll just start talking about it and see how you feel." And
yeah,
I can't think of, and there are some positives, and I will come to some positives, but for the most part, what I've just described is a film where I don't care about it, and the bits that really stick out for me are the really, for me, weak bits and bad bits. So I think it's a not very good movie.
yeah.
I think,
So end of it, the kids all get back safe. Valkyrie trains them with Lady Sif. Thor builds a monument to Jane in New Asgard, and then you see Love and Thunder, or Thor and Love running onto the beach, her wielding Mjolnir, him with Stormbreaker as they fuck some people up as the end credits come up. Um, the mid-credit scene is we see Zeus sending Hercules out to get Thor, and the end of it, you see Jane getting meted at the gates of Valhalla by Heimdall. Yeah,
I really like Hercules in the comic, and this was a bit of a shame for me because I actually prefer Hercules to Thor in the comics. I think I might have mentioned on other shows.
Yeah.
And I was kind of interested to see him get into the MCU, and after they'd done all the Zeus stuff earlier in this pantheon of gods, and then to slam him in at the end, I just went, oh shit, I wish they hadn't now. And like the meeting in the gates of Valhalla obviously gives them the road back. You can kind of go, she's gone, she's in Valhalla, which is great, or they can bring her back as a Valkyrie, or they can bring her back. So it gives them some room to go. But I cared nought about the plight of Jane by that point.
Yeah. So when I came out of this, I think the first thing I messaged you was, well, that's a bit there.
Yeah.
Thinking more of it and going through it, this says a lot. It's one of the only Marvel films in recent history that I've only seen once in a cinema. Because usually I will go with Sarah, and then I'll take the boy. So I usually see all Marvel things in the cinema twice. Sarah was, I don't care. She had no will to see it. After I came back going, it's all a bit there.
Yeah.
And I think part of that for us is Marvel burnout. We both of us haven't watched Moon Knight yet. We haven't watched Miss Marvel yet.
Don't bother, it's shit.
With all the TV stuff and it all just being something constantly, because obviously She-Hulk's now starting as well, and it is just the constant barragement of more and more content.
I guess
is coming in at lesser quality every time.
See, that's my counterpoint to burnout. I don't think you'd be burnt out if it's good. Now, don't get me wrong, I think there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. But I think if you were enjoying each one, or most of them, should we say, I don't think you'd be burnt out. But I think TV's been a problem for them. I think, and I've had my ups and downs in movies since Endgame. I mean, I know everyone and their brother absolutely loves Spider-Man, which I didn't. But I think the movie quality has been higher than the TV quality percentage-wise. I think we were very lucky with WandaVision, and then we hit. I'm not going to say ever decreasing, but it kind of bottoms out very quickly. And most we've got like Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki. I'll put What If kind of in this group. Hawkeye, for me, Moon Knight, and I kind of go. I watched them because they were Marvel shows, and to some part, I watched some of them because of what we used to do, and it was kind of the thing to do. But if they weren't Marvel, I wouldn't have watched them. And I am fast approaching the point, and I've hit that with Star Wars already. I'm not watching anything more Star Wars that comes out unless the trailer looks interesting. And good luck with making me interested in a trailer. And so the quality was a problem with me. Now, I don't think I've got Marvel burnout because I watched Miss Marvel and it is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. it's not as good as WandaVision. It's very different to WandaVision. I think WandaVision speaks more to my kind of proclivities. But
I think
I watched that.
WandaVision is a level above
Yeah.
pretty much most
Well,
TV. So
I
I don't
watched
think we can judge against WandaVision.
But do you know what? It's not too far off for me as a Marvel TV show. And again, like comparatively, the rest are leagues below. But I watched that. I finished watching that season. I binged it, and I think I watched that on the weekend or close to the weekend that I watched Thor. I loved it. So I don't think I am burnt out on it. I think I just want good stuff. And I think we're seeing less good stuff. And maybe that's because we're seeing more stuff. But I think we're seeing less good stuff. Now, I don't want to wade into this because I've seen a lot of people talk about, oh, Phase 4, terrible, it's lost its way. I think that's not fair because I think people forget that Phase 1 didn't really have a way. It took a while to establish, and I think people are thinking about Phase 1 with some rose-tinted glasses. But what Phase 1 did have is, one, we were bloody surprised we were getting the movies. Two, we were bloody surprised we were getting more movies. All of those sort of things. And so by the time we got to the big stuff, it was special because we never thought we'd get it.
And it wasn't interlinked in the way that it is now. Because all we got in those original, in the first phase, was you would get the tiny post-credit teaser for what was going to be the next film out. So you saw the crop circle with Mjolnir there for when 4 came out.
Yeah.
You got they found him, and just before Captain America came out because they'd found Steve in the ice.
Yeah.
It was very subtle little nods of this is what's coming next, but it wasn't intrinsic that the stories.
But it has to be, doesn't it? Because when they do make something where it isn't, the fan base absolutely destroy it. Because they go, why is my story not being moved? I need to know about the next big bad. The post-credit scenes. I said it's kind of that crack culture of entertainment where you're going, where's my next fix? Where's my next fix? Where's my next fix? But to the most part, for most Marvel movies, I think they are from Phase 1, 2, and 3. And I have my favourites. I have my ones I like less. There aren't many that I would kind of go, they're not very good. And I think at the moment, there's a lot of stuff that I would say is not very good. And I actually think just aren't very good. It's not, I think I even go beyond opinion on this because I think we have seen some really weak writing. Acting stayed relatively steady, but I think we've seen some really weak writing and poor pacing, poor ideas.
How many we had in this thing so far? Is it 4, isn't it? There's Shang-Chi, Eternals, Doctor Strange, and then this.
I know it's kind of
they're at a 50-50.
But Black Widow, in theory, is the gap between the last phase in this and Spider-Man.
I didn't like Black Widow, so they're at 3 and they're at half. They're a half hit rate in this new phase.
See, I don't. Again, not to kind of put into other ones, but I don't mind Black Widow. I mean, I like it a lot more than I think a lot of people do. Again, not without its problems. But I think it's a decent movie. I think it's a decent Marvel movie. Spider-Man: No Way Home was a big miss for me because of they threw away all the stuff I loved about those Spider-Man movies just so they could go, oh, look, it's Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and those villains that you've seen before. I've seen them before. Why do I need to see them again? Eternals was okay. I think they tried to do something with it. I don't think they necessarily knocked it out of the park. Doctor Strange
was great.
Shang-Chi was great, yeah. And Doctor Strange is in my top 5 Marvel movies of all time. So for me, I don't think it's been horrific at all. Like if I compare that to Phase 1, and I'm going to have to try and do my memory of Phase 1 because I guess whether you count Hulk in it or not, and I think officially probably doesn't, but if you're looking at Iron Man, Cap, Thor, Avengers. Is there another one?
Iron Man 2.
Yeah. See, and for me, with my watching it now, I don't like Iron Man or Iron Man 2. I think they're bad movies.
Yeah.
So I like 3, but they get a lot of credit from me, because without them, we wouldn't have the Marvel Universe, and I wouldn't have got to see all those characters. So I don't think their hit rates much far off on movies. But yeah, you are right. There is a lot more content, and I'm not saying that burnout isn't a thing for a lot of the audience. I do think we have a choice, though. That's another thing. Bearing in mind, I said earlier, I haven't taken that choice. I've stayed with it. But I do think we have a choice. And I have heard lots of people say, well, you can't not watch something because everything is part of the wider tapestry. You could just read what happens.
Yeah.
So there are options there, although... And...
The problem is with that, because part of me wants to see the TV stuff, because they are new characters they're bringing in. And in the case of Moon Knight, it's a character I've never read, but what I've heard about him is an interesting character, and I was like, I wonder what that would be like.
Pro tip for you: don't read anything before you watch the TV show. Watch the TV show without reading it, and I think you might like the TV show more than I did. I think it doesn't compare well to the comic books, and I think that was one of my bigger complaints for it. Whereas I think maybe if you come into it cold, it might be more enjoyable. So yeah, definitely don't read anything before you watch it.
So do you think this is what that is with the TV stuff then? Because obviously I watched WandaVision before reading Vision, which, yes, I know it's not a complete pull-on, but there are a lot of links.
I don't know, but you hadn't read the Falcon and Winter Soldier stuff, had you?
No, but I didn't like Falcon and Winter Soldier.
No, but that's what I mean. So, like, you loved one without reading it, and you didn't like one without reading it. So I don't think there's anything there's no kind of thread we can put on there. Like, because if you're saying like, having read the comics, will you potentially be harsher on the TV show? And in fact, to put it back to Thor, am I harsher on Thor because I love that Thor run? Possibly, but I think you can do. All the way through this, they've taken little bits of stories and stitched them together, and I think generally they've done it very well along the way. So they don't have to follow panel for panel when it's done.
No,
for me, they just need to make it compelling and good. And I think they're foolish if they don't take the best bits from 70 years worth of stories to make 5 films, 20 films, whatever it is. But sometimes they just get it wrong, or it's just not particularly good, or it's average, anything from brilliant down. And I think there's been, as I say, the TV is probably worse for this for me, but this is a story that could have been done really well with a cast that is established and a director who, for me, has never made a bad movie until this. And I think I'm leaning to this is bad. I think it is. I think if it wasn't for my dire hatred of the Iron Man movies, I think this possibly would slip into my least favourite Marvel movie.
This is very much bottom tier of the MCU run. And I can do without hearing Guns N' Roses being fucking forced into scenes, and then we've got a slowed down acoustic version of Sweet Child of Mine to play now. No.
So what went wrong with this movie? Again, we have for context, Thor Ragnarok is my second favourite Marvel movie.
It's my favourite.
Why? What happened? You've got the same director, the same visual style. The humour, I would argue, is similar. What went wrong? Why don't we like it? What missed about it?
I think the jokes don't land, and they don't land the first time, that they then hammer them home. It's doing the same joke over and over again to nauseam. I think a little bit of this is, to me, I don't like what they did with Jane. because they well and truly missed a trick on what they could have done with Jane. You know, they didn't need her to die. I don't think in this, but you know, she could have left with the the good story arcs that come out of the Mighty Thor run. It it just suffers from just not being funny, and just as we said, there are scenes in this that just drag the fuck on, and that seems to be an issue with a lot of the film. Is it just it's dull, not funny, and just nah.
So I look at like the meat of this story, or what I think should be the meat of this story, and the meat of this story should be love, for one. You know, like what people will do for love and their one true love, and also what they'll do when they lose that love, and I don't know, the silliness and the pettiness that sometimes we get into. You know, it's a story being told a billion times.
Yeah.
Well to awful. So that's kind of one part of it. You've got the gore element of what happens for someone who is absolutely convinced in something and devout towards it, and then they find out that either it doesn't exist, or in this case, it does exist, but it's not what you thought it was. Really interesting concept. Done really well in the comics, by the way, but really interesting concept. And at the other side, you have got the tragedy of a character, and when it was done in the comics, okay, they'd had 70 years of establishing Jane Foster, although dipped in and out and had long runs of time without it. Going through something that we as human beings go through, getting cancer. And yes, okay, it was wrapped up in the bundle of now she's Thor, but I think it's told, for me anyway, and again, I have not suffered from anything like that. So anyone who felt like it treated it badly, all I can talk about is I gave a shit in the comic because I saw the tragedy of someone going through something inherently human that will get most of us, and even the fantastical side of world that she dips into, not being able to save her, that there are real consequences for human beings in the world. And I think it's done brilliantly well. And, you know, I said it earlier, I didn't care in this. I didn't care about her. Like, they just kind of went, she's got cancer. This isn't going to fix her. Now she's dead. And I know it didn't happen quite like that, but kind of feels like the steps they went through to get there. And, you know, I go back to my complaints about that establishing section with the Guardians. I know the Omnipotent City is there very much to kind of, again, put these in the universe we're playing in, but overly drawn out. And I thought all of those minutes could have been spent to make me care more about the Jane story, because I wanted more screen time. Horrible to say, I wanted to see the suffering side of it more, because then it would have felt more real and more painful to see that. I wanted to see more of Gorr, and not just I wanted to see him fight more. I would have loved to have heard him talk more. I'd have loved to see him take out some gods, but whilst doing it, you know, seeing that. We always talk about who are the greatest villains. The greatest villains are the ones where we can kind of see it. Yeah. And with him, you can kind of see it because his kid died, and
his god's forsaken him.
But you want to see that thing that you can latch onto to send him to go in. No, all of a sudden, you know, like he finds a good god, and he has a choice not to kill that god, like one who has looked after its subject, but actually, you know, by this point he's gone too far. That would have been great to see that, and we didn't get any of that. Instead, we got the Guardian sequence, Omnipotent City, and I go waste. What a waste for the comedy side of it. And I don't want to push everything on the comedy because, as I say, I did like Thor Ragnarok and it had lots of comedy in it. But It didn't. You said it earlier. The jokes didn't work, and they felt like this is an hour and 40 minutes short for a Marvel movie. This could have had an hour cut out of it for me, but I'd like that hour cut out and a new hour shot and put in it because I think somewhere in here with this story there is a brilliant movie. We didn't get it.
Yeah, as I said, I hate to say it because I said I fucking love Ragnarok and I love Korg and I love Thor and it's there's just so much bits there that I'm like these should work so fucking well, and it just doesn't.
I felt it treated us like an idiot at large parts as well. Like, that hammering at home, almost like you're not going to get this. And I say this with like and as humorous as it is to hear Korg's voice, but the Korg voiceovers and then followed by 20 minutes of you having to see what you've just been told, it felt like it treated me like a dumbass. And I'm not a dumbass. Maybe some of the audience is, I don't know. But I think even a dumbass audience could have got this stuff without the hammering at home because it weren't high concept, was it? It's quite simple. Now, Taika Waititi is one of my favourite directors in modern cinema. And of course, I forgive him. Like, and I say forgive him, like he's sitting there going, "Will he forgive me?" But, like, I'm not going to go, "I didn't like this film. He is rubbish. I'll never watch anything again." Everything he has made up until this point I've not only liked, I've loved. He's been gold. And God, I can't think of anyone in any entertainment genre that hasn't had a banana skin somewhere down the line. And I think this is his banana skin. However, where again, I'm going to throw some criticism at it, and I'm going to compare it not to Thor Ragnarok, because I think Thor Ragnarok was trying to tell a different story and a more action anchored lean into a comedy story. I'm going to go to Jojo Rabbit. So in Jojo Rabbit, it is hilarious. You have a comedy imaginary friend, Hitler. You have a clumsy boy who fires a bazooka off. You have all of the kind of slapstick stuff that you see in his more comedy stuff. And it is emotionally affecting and it destroys you at certain parts of the movies. And where the balance is so good in that is you love them because you see them do the funny bits. So that when the bad bits happen,
you care.
It hurts you even more, because you care about them at that point. And that is the thing that surprisingly was missed totally in this, is that that balance wasn't there for me. I never cared about these characters, maybe because they went too much into the gags. Like, you establish all of the characters in Jojo Rabbit and there are laughs, and then because of that you get a kick in the nuts. In this, it was just, you kind of know these guys anyway, laugh. Oh, a bad thing happened, and I went, It had no punch for me, it had no emotional impact for me, and it should have. This is a character in the movies, in the comics, dying of cancer, and I was like, and
it's like, if we're going with Jojo Rabbit, the moment with his mum, I remember watching it. I had to pause it because both me and Sarah were like, "Fuck."
Not to spoilers for Jojo Rabbit. If you've not seen Jojo Rabbit, rush out and go and see it now. We won't go into it too much, although now you know that there's a bit of a mum. But just as an example of that, I watched this with my niece about a month ago, and she came around. She'd never seen it. She really wanted to watch it, and I stopped watching the movie for 5 minutes because I knew what was coming, and I watched her. And I watched the reaction she had when that happened. And of course, it could just be that the story was great. But that's what I wanted in this story. And maybe I set the bar too high in my own head. But I thought we were going to get moments like that. And even in the pacing, I wouldn't have told us she had cancer. I wouldn't have told us till way late on in the movie. Again, I'd have cut out some time, but I'd have had that battle really early. You see, she's a female Thor. we know what happens because we read the comics. So okay, it's never going to be a surprise for us. Most of this audience didn't know that, so use that and make that. And I'm not saying you should use cancer for shock or for what a twist.
Yeah.
No, that's the story, and I think it hurts so much when you're not seeing it coming, or when you're seeing her all powerful. You know, you establish that, and then
down.
and I think then it has the emotional impact that it should have, because it is a serious thing that they're talking about. But instead, it's a bit of a damp squib. It feels like a story device. This is going to be horrible, I think, to say, but in the comic book, it didn't feel like it was being done for shock value. It felt like they decided this is a story they wanted to tell, and they told it very nicely for me, I think, beautifully, I would say. In this, it felt like they decided at the end of the movie, we want to have shown that Thor, at some point, he coped badly with losing love, and he'll lose that love again, but because he's better now, he will turn that into something positive, i.e. looking after love. And this is how we'll do it, by sacrificing this character in this very human way that is horrible for us. Because, you know, like, I know it's the villain that kind of does it, and she has her brave moment, but she was going to die of cancer. I think that's the more powerful message here, isn't it? And yeah, just so wonky.
And the other thing is, again, as I said earlier, I wouldn't have killed her. I wouldn't have killed Jane off, because it'll fucking all the neckbeard dick monkeys that, you know, get really pissy about that they did a female Thor, and, you know, that Superman's son's gay and how dare you and all that. I thought, right, there you go. There's a whole fucking there's a film or two of the Mighty Thor. And then at the end of that, then, you know, we get, as it does in the books, that, you know, the cancer takes her in the end.
So these aren't cheap to make, these movies, are they? And again, you know, there's a lot. We talked about burnout and things like that. But something you said there, for the Thor character, for the mighty Thor character, and for Gorr, I feel like the bits that pay off in this movie should have had seeds in other movies, and probably this should have been one more movie down the line. And I'm with you. I quite like the idea of you come into this is the fourth Thor.
Yeah, it's 4-4.
4-4. I like that idea of going. You see Thor go off with the Guardians, don't you? And I'd have liked if this movie just had dropped and it be a movie about Mighty Thor. And during the movie, she does a Mighty Thor things, and maybe has some of that turmoil with Asgard as they're kind of going, why is there a new Thor? Da, da, da. Although in the comic, there's characters that are alive that aren't alive in the movies. And it be a bit of a mystery for the audience. Now, again, comic book readers, there is no mystery here, and you can look up this shit online. But I think a lot of people don't. A lot of people would have gone, wow, what has happened to Thor? And, you know, depending on where Guardian sits on the release schedule, I mean, I'd like to have thought that you did just kind of go, let's forget he went off with the Guardians, because then you come back for Thor 5, and by that time you've sown the seeds of like the God Butcher, and maybe, because of all the shit that's out there, all the TV shows, maybe just randomly in the back of TV shows, you've kind of got dead gods.
Yeah.
So you're kind of going, where is this? And then when you come back for number 5, then Gorr is revealed as the villain. He has some punch, some impetus. It brings
the Thors together.
It brings Hemsworth Thor back to kind of do a fight up, team up, but, you know, like a bit of an intrigue and a mystery around what's going on here. And then somewhere maybe in the middle of that movie, that's where you get the reveal, and then you can sacrifice her or not sacrifice her. I mean, I think ultimately in comics they tend to go with a sacrifice story, and I can see it. You know, it's well established, but I give a shit by then.
Yeah,
I think. But yeah, budgets and release schedules might impact that. But yeah, for a movie that's 1 hour and 40 long, that I say is stuff for the stuff it doesn't need, it felt like this story deserved more than one movie stuff full of ancillary things that I didn't need.
Yeah, as I said, if I was booking this using a wrestling term, I would like you just have released it as the Mighty Thor.
Yeah.
And not revealed who she is like the whole way through. She always has the mask on, has Mjolnir, fucks shit up, does the stuff that Mighty Thor does in the books, and then you then have that part for 4-5 where Thor sees Mjolnir, or as well as these way doing it, Odinson sees Mjolnir, goes the fuck. Then he sees Mighty Thor holding Mjolnir, another what the fuck, and then you then see that it's Jane.
Yeah. And you can explore that bit over the first half an hour of that movie, and possibly have that reconnection. And one thing I know we kind of brushed over, the fact that they are in love with each other, and the fact that they had this relationship that they showed in cutscenes, that I can't quite, and this is because I sometimes I don't even want to think about like where things are established, but I can't quite figure out where they did that part of the story. And I know I don't have to see everything; it's off camera. It felt like they wrote her out at the end of 2, moved on with their lives, and then went, "Oh, we want to do this story." Oh shit! We kind of really didn't make out as if she was that important for large bits of it here. We better put in a few cutscenes where we go, look, they really, really loved each other, and like grown-ups sometimes do because of, I say miscommunication, but like not wanting to interrupt important parts of each other's life. They went their separate ways. And I remember watching Thor 1 and Thor 2, and I actually really liked them as a couple. I thought they had a good chemistry. Yeah. I don't think they had any chemistry in this movie whatsoever.
No.
And it's a shame. So they even screwed up the love story part of it for me.
So that is what we think of.
Well, before we move on, I know we've said a lot of bad. I want to go out on something I did like though, and
okay.
It was the goats. If there's one bit of comedy in this that hit for me, it was the goats. So for as bad as the Guardian section was at the beginning, at least it put goats in the movie, and those goats were a joy for me every time they're on the screen. I think Taika's funny bone really had hit in there by giving them that really grinding, horrible, awful noise. And anytime they were on the screen, I wasn't kind of going brilliant. Let's have a movie about them, but they were fun and funny, and they fit in with a lot of Thor lore anyway. So there were nuggets in there of nice things, but not enough. But yeah, I didn't know whether I'd be really negative on this, and clearly talking about it, I think I have found my true centre on this. But yeah, I wanted to go out on something nice, and who doesn't want 2 angry goats in their life propelling their novelty ship along?
So let us know what you think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Where did it fit for you in the Marvel pantheon? Is it great? Is it mighty?
Are we just cynical old cunts that
Yeah, which is possible. It is possible. I've certainly been accused of it on many other things, but yeah. Let us know your thoughts on Thor: Love and Thunder.
And always like, ring bells, subscribe, do the YouTube.
Oh yeah, I always forget that stuff.
And come back for more Comic Stash. And whilst you're here, watch some Reacts videos. Get some new music in your life.
Yeah.
And until next time, goodbye.